the stigmatism, though.
All right, guys, we're back here with Zach in Portland, Oregon. How's it going, Zach?
It's going.
Do you currently stay here in this area right here?
Around different areas or whatever.
Yeah. Are you from Portland?
I like to say that I am from where I am from, because to say it that way, it allows me to be maybe mindful of the area that I'm in, also to be mindful of myself and maybe the state of mind that I might be in at the time. If I'm new at something in a way, or if I've been working on something in other ways, to just say I am from where I am from, it helps me be able to kind of put a pause in that question, but then to come back to it later, where I can maybe give more of a background in that kind of concept. But say that I might have just been wandering around and I happen to meet the person that might ask me that question.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take from that energy or that whatever might have brought that moment together at the time. So for me to just say I am from where I'm from, it kind of helps me to kind of step to the side with that question, and then I can maybe answer it more. But it allows me to be innocent to my thoughts of myself if I'm truly working on something at the time.
How long have you been homeless,
Zach? I would say since about 2013.
How old were you?
But that's when I became voluntarily, like, as to where I wanted nothing more but to actually be homeless. But
And why is that?
I don't know. I looked at it as something that I didn't really know a whole lot about, and if I didn't know a lot about it, that meant that it's something in the way of things along the lines of being outside of that home and being in the homelessness, what the word home might mean to me more than just something that I was always in day to day. So I would say that, like, a greater fond appreciation of some things that might have given me a view at in that approach, but very if I were to say, in some instances, I think I'm a pretty stable individual, but it's got nothing to do with that whole common sense of it all, I guess. If I were to not necessarily be sleeping, but if I'm just, whether I'm sitting, whether I'm standing, or whatever, laying down, and I just have my eyes closed, but I'm still awake with it all, it gives a very uneasy feeling in that whole, my greatest health is what I've gained. However, anybody else looks at that person.
Does your family ever check up on you, Zach?
I want to skip that question.
Yeah, okay. Do you have any kids?
Skip that question.
Okay.
The reason is, if the whole where am I from, I can't have a conversation point at me and then always point at something else afterwards. I gotta try to keep that finger, if a person's asking me a question, not so much as that they're pointing a finger, but I have to look at myself, because if I don't look at myself, I'm not looking at anything that should be looked at.
What struggles do you face being out here in the streets? What dangers?
I'm not sure what your question is. I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure what your question is.
I feel it, bro. Have you turned to any drugs being out here in the streets?
I have thought about times where, if it's, the look at a person, whether it comes to job qualifications or whatever a person that's looking at that, however they might be looked at and however they look at it all, really it then just involves more individuals other than oneself. So I mean, even as far as if a person doesn't have a job at the time, it's not like they have anything that is looking at that. I mean, it's really, if I were to say the whole thing of a catch-22, sometimes to step past that stuff, it either does no good in the health-wise of all the people on that side of that catch-22, or it's not looking at the individual that it should, because that person's always being held back by something else that was before them. Like,
hey Zach, how do you feel that average people treat homeless?
Could you ask that one more time?
How do you feel that average people treat homeless?
How do I feel that average people treat homeless? I would say that I've had a pretty good experience myself, but it doesn't mean everything saying it that way. To say how's the average person treat the homeless?
Yeah.
I've had a pretty good experience. As far as the other person, like if that question were turned to where, how do I feel if as far as how the homeless might treat your everyday person, I would say that sounds more fair, other than just looking at it one-sided with words.
For sure.
Because sometimes it's not the other person that's where maybe everybody's trying to fit in to feel that they are looked at in that way, but that's where a person has to look for their own self-acceptance.
Zach, where do you currently sleep at night?
Different spots sometimes.
Do you have a tent?
I would much rather not answer that question, because I'm not trying to set my self's thoughts on something that is possibly looked at sometimes by myself in more than one kind of way. Because even though like I'm not in a house and I'm homeless, does that mean I never want to be in a house again? Not exactly, but
right,
maybe like how I might look at approaching the thought of all of that stuff in
Hey Zach,
some way.
Have you ever overdosed before?
You mean on like
On
drugs or alcohol
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah.
There's like, to overdose, technically, if a person gets nauseous and sick, is that technically a form of overdosing? It's not always just the same look at it, but
Have you ever saved someone?
sometimes a person can maybe get to that, like what they might say, the legal limit or whatever. If you have more than that, then that's
Have you ever
technically
saved someone
overdose.
from an overdose?
I would rather not talk about that.
would you
because
just-
I can't say that it's me just by myself. The other person has got a lot to do with it too, because no matter who it is, they're just as strong, even if they're pulling through from that or whatnot.
Hey, bro, would you be okay with a follow-up interview in the future if I see you?
Follow-up interview.
Like same thing as this, just talking to you again, you know, same thing as this.
But as far as like if I don't have any plans and I'm not busy,
Yeah, okay.
you're not saying as far as a date or a time, but just if it
I
so
just see
happens.
you, and you're not busy. Hey, bro, would you be okay with me posting this on my YouTube channel?
I haven't really looked at the whole technological world of things sometimes in a little bit of time, other than maybe the outsides of that, I guess. But
What message do you have for your family if they end up seeing this video? Family or friends?
it's not so much as family or friends. I think it would have to be with myself, because if I were to think all the way back to some of the littlest things about myself, you know, before I even knew who the other person was, no matter who it was, I'm that person for myself. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's not really about the other person if their thought in their mind of someone's mind is more in the peaceful thought of one's mind. You know what I mean?
Zach,
So
I appreciate your time, bro. Thank you. Have a good day.